Cool.
Are we live?
I think we are. Although I can still hear music. Oh, it's because I can hear our audio. I'm going to mute that. There we go. Now we're live.
Well, hello, and welcome to Tech News Live.
Good morning.
So, good morning, good morning. How are you, Sam? Okay, got your coffee?
Decaf getting me ready for the day.
Hang on, decaf. It's not even 9 o'clock and you're drinking decaf already.
It's been a
How
hard
much
week,
coffee have
man.
you had?
It's been a hard week.
Right, well, anyway, we've got plenty of news articles coming up for you today, but I think the headlines are Google Incognito mode, or is it? We've got a 700 terabyte optical disk, and we've got blaming the intern for your security flaws. But first, let's talk about Apple. So Apple have been killing products again this week. We've had plenty of products killed over the last few weeks, but Apple have killed another one after the iMac last week. They have discontinued the big HomePod.
That sucks. Well, it doesn't suck because it means they'll go on sale, but
Briefly, while
yeah.
stocks last.
Yeah. Or people will be selling them. But I have the mini, and it is great. It's not, sound quality's okay. I was left thinking, should I have got the bigger HomePod because it's not quite there, but it is quite expensive for the dumbest smart speaker on the market.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? Siri hasn't really advanced very much. Not as much as the others, I don't think. I mean, I actively have used both Alexa and Google Home in my house, but I've not really done much with the Apple kit. Is it worth it because it's much more expensive than the others?
I don't know. You're paying for convenience because Siri is good. I can ask her like basic questions normally to entertain guests, but most of the time I ask it to set a timer or play some music. But it's just nice, if I'm playing something on my phone, I can just walk over to it and tap it, and it just sends it to it. But it's 100 quid is steep for the mini.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when you consider that Amazon and Google are charging like what 30 quid for their minis.
Exactly.
That's very, very cheap in comparison to the 99 for a lesser quality AI, really.
Yeah. No, maybe probably it isn't worth it. But then when you're in Apple ecosystem, you're kind of, it's like it's nice to have everything kind of working together, and that's quite.
There
nice.
is that, but I mean, they were betting on having the better quality speaker in it. They were hoping that people were going to go for the 299 one because of the quality of the speaker. That hasn't really paid off for them. Kind of the same as the iMac Pro, really, in a way that they're it's the upper end, and that's what they're discontinuing, I guess.
Yeah, it just needs to hit all the marks. The consumer market. I don't think. I mean, this is me judging Apple now, but I don't think they've quite nailed their market in terms of they're trying to force premium products on people who like they're what do we call them? Prosumers. Apple people are prosumers. Like they think they're getting premium, like high quality stuff, but actually Apple make you feel that way because of the high price. But actually, you never get a one-on-one the same for the price. Like the headphones that they've just released, you can get much better headphones for 550 quid. Same with the home speaker, the HomePod. It's good audio, but you're not getting everything, which is what a consumer average consumer wants from Apple. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's quite refreshing that they're killing parts of the product line, to be honest, because they have expanded it too much in the recent years, in my opinion. I think the first thing that Steve Jobs did when he came back into control in the 90s was to kill a whole load of stuff. And, realistically, Apple was very good at having, a very limited choice. And I think that was one of the best things about it, really. So I'm quite glad that they seem to be tidying up the excess products. But I still think it's a shame to be losing the iPhone 12 mini, though, because I think that's a much nicer size than any of the other things. It's just too goddamn expensive as usual.
Yeah.
But I'm still excited about all of the new products that are coming up. I think there's a rumored event for March 23rd
Mm-hmm.
as well, where they're going to be launching a few new products, which may include a new iMac. It may include that 14-inch MacBook, but MacBook Pro. But I don't know exactly what's going to be in that yet. Have you got any more insight on that, Sam?
Um, iPad Pro, maybe a Mac Mini. There was one other thing. Oh, AirTags. They're
Oh
rumored to come out
yeah.
for a long, long time. It's not meant to be a big event. Don't think we're going to hear anything from the new Mac lineup, but those smaller ones, it might be like a minor event, or they might tease something for the future. I don't know.
Well, so do you not think we're going to get M1 chips in more MacBooks for the 23rd of March?
There's delays or something like until later on in the year, so it would be weird to actually launch them on that event. They might announce them, might say this is what's coming or whatever, but I don't know, we'll see.
Because the rumor mill suggests that it's going to be mid 2022 before we've had the whole Mac line has been replaced with the Apple Silicon.
But remember, that's the Mac Pro, their big boy.
Yes,
And
yes.
they're probably delaying that because they don't want people who spent 50k on a Mac Pro last year to then just be replaced to the year after. So they're probably intentionally going to prolong that release. But I think this year we should expect the new laptops, which I'm very excited for, and that's about it. Maybe the iMac.
And what about these tags then? Are you excited about the tags?
Nah, I like Tile, man. They Tile are much cheaper, and the only thing that sways you with the AirTags is because loads of people have iPhones, and then they're tapped into the tracking feature like automatically. I mean, there probably should be an opt-in thing for it, but I'm not sure how.
This is a great way to not lose your keys, though, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Although, how accurate is that going to be? Is it going to just tell you that your keys are in your house, and you're going to be like, oh, "Well, thanks for that."
Yeah, exactly. If I was to, I mean, if I pop up like a share thing on here, one thing they've not utilized. I just want to share something. They haven't utilized it. If I share something, and I go, if I tap I don't know if you can probably see that. Oh, I'm sharing our window here.
Yeah, I can.
I can't really see. You're seeing all my contacts there, but I don't know. But basically, there's a share thing. AirDrop, that'd be better. There's like an arrow thing. No,
I do like AirDrop.
focus, is it?
Yeah,
there's an arrow. There it is.
No,
and it's really.
Oh, there we go.
That's like really accurate, and the dots are spinning. By the way, I don't know whether you can see that, but that's really accurate within like millimeters or something. So you can actually find out exactly where it is. Whereas either my Tile will just ring. I don't know, as long as it rings, it's fine. But it's just that kind of accuracy that AirTags could bring that Tile doesn't have access to or whatever,
I think it's something I'd love to have a play with, but again, it depends on the price.
Yeah.
If they release them at $99 or £99, I'm not going to be buying that for fun.
No.
Anyway, should we move on? We've got plenty to talk about today, so why don't we have a little talk about QVC on TikTok? Well, this is actually Walmart who have teamed up with a user on TikTok to sell content live. So they were actually playing doing a TikTok live. The user is doing a makeup tutorial, and meanwhile, she's selling all of the products, and it's a team up with Walmart. So that she's introducing a QVC style shopping.
Trying to look for the article.
Well, she's introducing a QVC style shopping channel onto TikTok, which I think is really interesting. That it would now sort of come back, because I think they had somewhere in the region of about certainly a few thousand people on there at any one time, which arguably is probably more than QVC get these days. Probably not in their peak in the 90s, but it's. I think it's really interesting that they're starting to bring back that platform, although I'm not sure whether it's good for the quality of the platform. What do you reckon, Sam?
I don't know. What do you mean by quality, by the way?
Well, I don't know. Do we need more shopping channels?
Yeah, pollutes it.
do we
Yeah.
need do we need that on our social media?
You're trying to get away from it, really. But I don't know, like it or loathe it, I think people do like to just. I suppose they like to choose to shop rather than being kind of it forced down, your throat. But you know, you just have to see how it goes. Really, I don't know. TikTok and QVC selling. You're definitely tapping into a new market. I mean, QVC was never, trendy with the kids ever. So maybe it's gonna just just tap into a new market and maybe they'll enjoy it. I don't know.
Well, yeah, some people certainly seem to be sold by it. And
Mm.
but anyway, any more on social? There is a new Instagram Lite app which has gone live. Have you seen that one?
I heard about
So
it like last week. Someone said something about Instagram Lite, but what is it?
So it seems that Facebook and Instagram, well, obviously it is all Facebook, but it seems like they've been launching versions of a Lite app, which are generally they're targeted at emerging markets. So and mostly Android phones. So they're trying to launch a lighter weight version of the traditional apps that take up less space on your computer or your device, I suppose. So the standard size for for Instagram is 30 megabytes, and this new app is down to 2 megabytes, which is actually slightly larger than the old one because the old one was under a megabyte in size. But this is an entirely new architecture, supposedly built on an internal Facebook platform called Blocks. So the previous one I think was a progressive web app. The new one, this is going from this is from a TechCrunch article as well, actually. So you can go and take a little look at that. But essentially, it's built on an internal platform called Blocks, and it has most of the features in it, which I was surprised by. So it's not just you might imagine from a light thing that they would be focusing on, say, just Reels, like the competitor to TikTok, but actually, it seems to be most of the functionality, including creating all of the videos. They seem to have slimmed the app down actually by removing the ability to create a reel, which may be short-sighted, or in terms of a product set, probably not in terms of the difficulty it is to create that functionality lightweight in a lightweight application. But you'd think that would be the most popular portion of it, especially with TikTok being a competitor.
Yeah, but that's very like it's video and it's very just like 15 seconds, 15 seconds. It's very just it's going to consume a lot of data probably.
Yeah, so seemingly the things that they've taken out of it are things like shopping mode. They've taken out dark mode. They've taken out end-to-end encryption, although actually reading this article, it seems that end-to-end encryption isn't in the main app anyway. But yeah, they've taken out adverts as well, which is actually quite nice. I think that's always a good thing. But I think it's interesting that they're going after a lightweight version of the app. I think my main question would be, does this mean that there is a newer version of the whole app coming at some point, which may slim down things a little further?
Could be some
which would be
interesting
nice.
learnings from that light version that they think, actually, you know what? Let's bring that into the main version.
Well, yes. I mean, these things tend to happen, don't they? So, there's been plenty of examples in the past where, you target trying to, say, for example, deliver a better customer experience to a certain type of user. So there are examples of Marks and Spencer trying to meet a disability standard, making the aisles wider and making it easier to browse those aisles. And actually, all shoppers, funnily enough, found that easier to browse. So, I think this is the thing. If you target just making a better customer experience, you can make it better for everybody. And making it light is going to be great because, for people who've not got as much memory on their smartphones, well, they can store more photos and more other things on their smartphones, more apps. Apps take up a hell of a lot of space, especially on older phones and with less memory.
There's actually I thought this was going to be, when I first heard it, I thought this was going to be a similar thing that Twitter did. So Twitter, they allow you, when you add their website to your home screen, that actually is a progressive web app, which is super light. It doesn't download images, and I thought it would have been like a version like that, which to me sounds like the better way to go. But maybe they needed some sort of hardware acceleration to warrant having a native app. But Twitter have a Twitter Lite, and you just add it to your home screen, and then it's, like I say, a progressive web app.
Well, it seems like this was a progressive web app, and they've dialed it back from that.
Okay.
Which is interesting, because I'm curious to know where the world goes with progressive web apps, because they don't seem to have had quite the take up that you'd expect them to.
Yeah.
I think there's still an argument about is the best way to deliver mobile content. Should it be an app form? Should it be in a progressive web app form? Should they be native? There's so many questions, I think, around apps still. And I think it'll continue to bounce backwards and forwards over the years, because, we've never settled on anything as a standard.
I think, to be honest, I think it's just the average consumer thinks, I want an app, I'm going to go to the app store. They don't know about that add to home screen, which is where progressive web apps really get their power from, when you've added them to the home screen or whatever.
I don't think it's just the average consumer. I think it's the average company says, I want an app.
Oh yeah, there's that true, but from my perspective, I think progressive web apps will be fine for most scenarios and easier to roll out updates, all the rest of it. But like I say, people just think, I want an app, I must go to the app store. They don't even have a clue what a progressive web app is, or just a web app. They just don't know what that is. There's not enough education.
I agree, and I actually think that the progressive web app, I think, is one of the hardest. I think that must be a little bit of a hard thing to understand as a consumer, because you kind of only know that there's an app once you've got to a page and it says, would you like to download this as an app? It's not something you can go to the app store to download, can you? Or am I thinking that, or can you actually? Have I missed that?
Download what? Sorry?
You can't download a progressive web app from the app store, can you?
No. It's only through the website. It's done all through the website.
I had a little moment of doubt there, because I clearly haven't had enough coffee. But I think that's a weird thing. It must be a very difficult thing to understand as a consumer. If you were going out looking for a particular app, you're not going to find it in the app store, but you go to the website and it tells you can download it as an app. That's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Bit of an odd experience.
Yeah, it's just an odd thing to. Yeah, that's why it hasn't got going.
Before we move on to some other news, we should very briefly talk about another app thing, which is Parler, of the right-wing social media app that was removed quite dramatically in January as a result of the whole stuff with the right wing and Trump and the Capitol insurrection and all that sort of stuff. Has been trying to get back into the App Store this week and has been denied again. Yeah. So that's. Well, I think that's just a bit of good news as far as I'm concerned. They've tried, but Apple have blocked them again, so that's nice, I think. And presumably they've managed to find somewhere else to host them after AWS turned them off, if they're actually going to try and put stuff up again. But yes, I think it's good to see that the internet is still pushing back against right-wing hate. So positive news there. Should we talk about something a little bit more exciting? So, Sam, you brought this article to my attention earlier this week about Russia breaking the internet.
Yeah. Basically, Russia. I mean, in some ways, rightly, they don't like all the pornographic images and all that kind of stuff on the platform, so they asked them to take it down essentially, and Twitter wouldn't. So in response, they slowed down access to Twitter by just slowing down downloading of images and all the rest of it. But in turn, many people found that the rest of the internet was very, very slow as well. They deny, I don't know who they are, but Russia, they deny that there was any correlation between the two, that it was actually just a technical fault at their, I'm going to read this now, their ISP, Rotekacom.
Nicely
They think
done.
it's Rotekacom. That's my Russian.
That sounded
impression.
much better, actually. I think you did that very convincingly.
Bit of
We
grunt
do actually
behind it.
have listeners from Russia, so maybe you can write in with how to actually pronounce that.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of listeners from South Africa. I think I have Ollie Smith to blame for that because there's quite a lot of South Africans listening to us.
Yeah, we've gone global. We've gone global. This is global news. If we're missing out anything from your locale, please do write in.
Yeah. So technical difficulties, a very convenient time. I don't know, but people were struggling with the rest of the internet based off of that. I think they fixed it now, but quite funny.
But in an effort to try and slow down or remove pornographic content from Twitter, they managed to turn off or reduce the access to the internet, which I think is interesting, isn't it?
Oh, SpaghettiOs.
Oops. So that's I think this is it kind of all goes on. It goes hand in hand, doesn't it? With I suppose governments are trying to have an impact on controlling those tech companies throughout the world. This is Russia's attempt. Clearly didn't work. It would be interesting to see where they're going to go next, actually.
Is there any government that manages to manage their tech, ecosystem very well? Like, it just seems to be government fail after government fail with tech for some reason.
Well, it's interesting you should bring that one up. And this one wasn't an article I was intending to cover necessarily. And another thing, this is what grinds my gears. So you may, if you're in the UK, you may have had the census information through your door this last week. So the census is all online this year, and this is the first time the census has been online entirely. And wow, doesn't that sound like you're like we're gearing up for some dramatic fail? So you can already go online to the government website and you can start inputting your information. But there are somewhere in the region of there's 65 million people in the UK roughly, and you've got about 30 million households for that. If all of that data is getting submitted by the end of March, I think it's the 25th or something like that, that data has to be submitted, that just feels like an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So I think this is something we need to go into in a little bit more detail. It feels to me like there is a tech show live coming up on the night of the census being submitted, waiting potentially to see, have the government done their load testing? Is the site going to stay up? Because this is the first time it's ever been done. I would love to know, and we should definitely speak to somebody about it. Have they done their load testing? Is the site going to stay live? Because they've gone down on several occasions, the government websites, for various different reasons. This is a really big, probably the biggest test I would imagine that they've had. They're asking for, a submission of somewhere in the region of 20 to 30 million submissions on a single night. That's a lot. I mean, obviously there's big tech companies out there can handle this, but this has got to be probably the biggest test of the government's digital infrastructure. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, well, we shall see. It reminded me of another thing that I don't think we were doing these when it came out, but there was a government, I forget which one, their form submission, their kind of data gathering service or whatever they do, they've done that online for a while, but on the announcement of the discontinuation of Adobe Flash, which was how long ago now, I think recently they finally Chrome is just not supporting it at all now. For whatever reason, this government chose to leave dealing with that because their whole platform runs on Flash, their whole form submitting process runs on Flash. Didn't do anything about it, but instead of patching it or creating it in just a regular form, they built a browser that you had to download just to fill out the form that supported Adobe Flash. which is just an incredibly long-winded way to resolve a very simple problem. But they built a browser for it. I should find out which country that was, but yeah.
I feel like they probably could have taken a simpler route there.
I think so too. I'm just googling it now. Browser flash form, whatever. Let's see if something comes up. South African government. It was the South African government.
Oh, there we go for our South African listeners.
There we go. What are you doing? I can build you a form. I will build you a form. It won't cost you that much, but I can.
Well, how much are you charging, Sam?
I'll try to switch. Where is OBS now? Here it is. I'm trying to switch the articles so you can tell I'm not telling porkies. But yeah, it's that was another thing. The government's just being a bit crazy, really. Anyway.
Well, at the top of the news, we talked about the three main headlines which we have, which was Google Incognito, the 700 terabyte optical disk, and blaming the intern. How about we cover one of those?
Let's do it.
So, Google Incognito. Google Incognito is not incognito. How many people don't know that? So, Google Incognito, it's basically just stopping you from seeing your history being stored on your computer. That's pretty much what it's stopping: history and cookies, which is great as a web developer. It's great for testing things to make sure that your stuff isn't cached. Absolutely. But it's not good for private browsing of the internet. And it seems that Google has clearly not made this clear, because they are now facing a class action suit. So I'm sure there's a class action suit in technology every month at this particular moment in time. But they are facing a class action suit for not clearly describing, not notifying users that actually Google was still collecting data, or is still collecting data, whilst you're in incognito mode. So people think that they are browsing the internet safely and securely. Frankly, I think that's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah.
You log into Incognito as a user using it for the first time. You would think that you are now browsing privately, and you're not in any shape.
Yeah. And not just Google, but your ISP. They can see what you're doing as well. What people are looking for is a VPN, not incognito mode. That's how you would browse, obviously, in incognito. But you're right. It's you're incognito to anyone else that uses your computer. That's it. Everyone else can see what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hide your activity, your traffic on the internet, then yes, it's a VPN or Tor with a built-in VPN. So the Onion browser, for example. And obviously, there's different search engines as well. If you're wanting to get away from being tracked by Google, then things like DuckDuckGo are a good place for you to go. DuckDuckGo is a great search engine, actually. I think it works almost. It feels very familiar. It works in a very similar way to Google, but of course, you're not actually being tracked in the same way. And I really like the Tor browser as well, the Onion browser. I think it works particularly well. And again, there's some great VPNs out there as well, such as like ExpressVPN has a good free version as well.
And a word from our sponsor now.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Maybe we should stop talking about ExpressVPN, unless they want to sponsor us. ExpressVPN, if you do want to sponsor us, do get in touch.
I prefer Nord.
Oh, do you? All right, then. Well, we'll have VPN wars. But no, I think these are using some of these other browsers. I think it's important, if you are a developer, at least, to know how they work and to know what's in them. But yes, back to the news side of things, we do have Google are going to have requested to dismiss the class action suit, and the judge, Lucy Coe, I believe, has denied that, seemingly. So there is going to be a class action suit against this, and this will, if it's successful, it will lead to payouts. be interesting to see who gets paid out for that. I think it'll be much like the last class action suit that we talked about, which was the Facebook facial recognition tracking for photos and auto tagging.
Mm-hmm.
The payouts will ultimately end up being relatively small, but it'll probably be a huge sum.
Yeah.
Because it affects so many people.
On that note, I've just opened up a new private browser in Edge, and I'm not sure if this is a response to what's happened, but the first thing that opens up is what in private, they call it in private, what in browsing does. Deletes your browsing info when you close all in private windows, save collections, favorites, and downloads, but not download history. Prevents Microsoft Bing searches from being associated with you. That's interesting, because then maybe that's a little bit, you might not be able to understand that one. What in private doesn't do, hide your browsing from your school, employer, or internet service provider. Give you additional protection from tracking by default. Doesn't say it removes it. And additional protection to what's available in normal browsing. So maybe that's a response, but it looks like Edge is trying to be more explicit about what it does and doesn't do. It looks like a whole article.
Well, I think that's good. We should be, they should be clearer about this. Anyway, Sam, you brought another article to my attention. Firefighting robots. Do you want to talk to us about firefighting robots? Which arguably I think should have been a headline, actually. Firefighting robots.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Well, I mean, actually, to be fair, that isn't the main deal about this headline. It's actually more about climate. But so in Chiang Mai, in Thailand, they've deployed firefighting robots, so robots to help fight fire, to spray the air with water, because the AQI, or what was it, the air pollution index hit like a record 195 for a few days in a row. So they're spraying water into the air to actually just filter out and freshen the air up of the harmful PM 2.5 particles in the air. So there's people spraying the air with just normal hoses, but they're also using robots to kind of do the same thing. But it looks really cool. Let me get the video up. But as a point of comparison, right now London has an AQI of 26.
So what's the when you're quoting these numbers, what do they mean? Is it a particular particle index?
Yeah, so it's the size of the particle, basically. 2.5, as you can imagine, is very, very small. A 10 is much bigger, sort of thing. So it's just these are very, very small. I don't know whether you can get much smaller than 2.5. I have no idea, but 2.5 is always the harmful one. Apparently.
So when they're spraying these robots, or when these robots are spraying, is that they're spraying water into the atmosphere, and that's what attaching to the pollution and bringing it down? Is that the intention?
Yes. So water. I'm similar. You'll enjoy this, Chris. But there's videos that you watch people spraying guitars with what do you call it? Like the spray guns, paint guns, and they'll do it. There'll be a waterfall behind it, because I imagine it sticks to the water, and the water just brings it then down to the ground. So I think it's a similar
charged particles.
I don't know, actually. It might be a charge. I don't know.
Because that's pretty much how powder coating works, isn't it? If you're powder coating paint, it's generally a charged particle, and that's what causes things to stick.
Yes, so I think that's what's making it stick to the guitar, or the but to actually remove it from the atmosphere, to remove it from the air, it's clumping to the water particles.
So why are we describing these as firefighting robots then? Is it
because
the index of pollution
to fight fires? And you can't see my screen now, but if you were to watch the live stream, you would see that the firefighters brought them in, and there we go.
Oh, I see. So they are. Okay, I get it. So they're specifically used to spray water on things, and now they're being used to fight fires.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It wasn't the main headline that these are firefighting robots. They just exist. Firefighting robots exist in Chiang Mai.
Wow.
There we go. They can be operated from about 600 meters away or 300 meters away, and they can fight fire. But yeah,
Well, that's very cool. It's very cool. Becoming more and more useful is our AI.
There we go.
Speaking of AI, you had another one actually, didn't you? Which was another fighting mental health with
Fighting
AI.
mental health. Yes. So Vivian Ming is the founder of a. She's a neuroscientist, and she's founded a company called Socos or Socos. I don't know. And they work to fight air quote messy human problems, which includes things in education and health. And in this specific case, mental health, and they're looking to use AI to read the facial cues, audio, like speech cues and things like that, to understand if someone's anxious or suffering from anxiety. There was another one, patterns, eye movements, stress and anxiety. So these are very subtle things actually that is trying to detect, but I think generally they're looking to use AI and technology to help with these issues, which is quite exciting. And and to celebrate, National Women's Day. A little nod to the founder also being a woman. Woman with Bite is from Digital Trends article, they call her. So yeah, pretty cool. Oh, I'm flicking through the article here, and it's not even showing on my screen. Sorry, everyone who was watching, but this is the article. I pressed the wrong button.
How many technologists does it take to present a news article on YouTube?
It needs bigger buttons. It's just a little kind of button that I need to click to.
You can do that. You can make a bigger button.
I could, and you can even buy, it might be a new gadget day, but you can even buy these little, big roadcaster pad things where you can just switch between stuff. That would be cool.
One day, if we put some advertising on and actually make some money, then maybe we can afford to buy some new technology, because at the moment I think we're running at a loss.
Don't tell them.
Speaking of which, move on. So we were talking about AI. I think another thing that's related to AI is actually deep fake stuff. So deep fakes, yes, deep fakes are becoming more and more prevalent, I guess, and they are becoming harder and harder to detect. But there is one university, the University of Buffalo, who have managed to find a way of spotting deepfakes, which I think is pretty cool. So deepfakes have been gaining a lot of news coverage recently, particularly because of the Tom Cruise deepfake. You've just seen that one, haven't you, Sam? I've just introduced that to you. But it's pretty damn real, right?
It is. I mean, yeah. Let me try and refresh this. Really damn real. I mean, like I said, this is an actor that has a good starting template, but there's lighting on his hair, lighting on his face. He puts on glasses. The streamers can see this. He puts on glasses. He puts on a hat. All looks there's no kind of trimming or cropping or anything like that. And he's playing golf. Old Tom Cruise, or deep Tom Cruise.
Well, there's a few of them as well. There's a few. But I think what's interesting is they seem to have taken clips from all of his movies, and they've rendered them into creating a 3D model of Tom Cruise's face. And it's I mean, the guy's clearly a very clever voice actor as well, but it's incredible that you'd be hard pressed to tell whether it was Tom Cruise or not.
I know, yeah, it looks insane. Sorry, I'm just getting my charger because my computer seems to be not charging with the charger it's on now. So I'll let you take it away, Chris, for like two minutes.
That's okay. Just give everybody a chance to admire your pajamas. Right. I'm actually just pausing because I think it's worth acknowledging your. I actually just paused, Sam, and laughed because I think it's worth acknowledging your pajamas.
Hey, I'm. No one can see that, by the way. You just embarrassed me on the internet now.
They can't see you, or did you put it onto something else?
Yes, I'm
I'm
professional.
Are you?
Absolutely.
So it's just me that got to see your pajamas, and now I've drawn everyone's attention to it.
Exactly.
Well, you can cut this out of the podcast. I'll allow you to do that.
Still trying to plug this thing in, by the way.
Just for anybody else who is tuned in, I am actually dressed, and not just from the waist up.
Hey, it's Sunday, man. It's
Welcome to the days of Zoom.
It's cozy day. We've been up since 7:30 preparing for this.
This is the new Zoom era where everybody only dresses from the waist up.
Right, my battery's on 6%, so my video was glitching and stuff. But hopefully, when it starts.
Oh, I wondered why your video is glitching. I thought it was.
I think it's my battery.
Are you charging now?
I am charging. Right.
Okay,
now,
good.
Let's go into gallery view. And now they can see me.
Right, okay.
There we go.
now fully dressed from the waist
now
up.
fully no. Just
right,
really
anyway. let's get back to it. So I think anyway, I wanted to just let's focus in a little bit on what what Buffalo University have managed to do, which is a tool that is 94% effective at detecting deep fakes, which is pretty clever. So what they've been able to do is they've found that the place where you can really identify the difference in a deep fake versus real is in the eyes, and it's the reflection in the eyes. So they're actually able to detect particular reflections in the eyes, which will give you an indication of whether they are a real or whether they have had a deep fake applied. Because I think this is going to be, this is going to be more and more tricky as time goes on. Because obviously you've actually got deep fakes appearing in movies now. Because we had Peter Cushing was in Star Wars. That's he died obviously about 30 years ago, I think. So having a character reprise his role in a movie after he's been dead for 30 years is quite astonishing. And obviously I think we've mentioned this before as well. We had Roy Orbison go out on tour last year as well as Frank Zappa. So again, both of those guys have been dead for 30 years. So obviously in that instance where you're going to see a hologram performing on stage, you know that they're a deep fake, but when it's something a little bit more nefarious, it's a little bit harder to detect, really. And I think it's great that a company can identify that, or a university can identify that. How that gets used, how it gets applied, will be interesting.
Or they've just given ammunition to think, right, we need to sort out the eyes. Add a reflection map of the scene somehow. Unreal Engine will have it sorted. They'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, that is probably very, very true, because that's the one that's the scariest and the most exciting. Yep. Anyway, we had a couple of other headlines as well, which was the 700 terabyte optical disk and SolarWinds, and blaming the intern. So why don't we talk about SolarWinds? So SolarWinds, quite notorious for a hack, which was in mid-December last year, 2020. Government agencies, particularly in the US, were breached through SolarWinds Orion software. So, do you know how many confirmed breaches there were? Because there's quite a lot.
No, I'm looking at the article now.
So it affected. I mean, this is something from last year, but the fact that it included the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, Defense, Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Justice, Labor, the State Department, the Department of Transportation, the Treasury, the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. It also, they managed to get into state governments as well, of Arizona, California, and Ohio, and Texas. And in the private sector, they also breached Belkin, Cisco, Equifax, Microsoft, Mimecast, NVIDIA, Palo Alto Networks, VMware, and others. And most of this breach, it was it was affected through breaches in VMware and Microsoft, but SolarWinds is one of the main ones. So it all came through the Orion platform. Seemingly, the Orion platform is, as described on their website, a way to monitor, analyze, and manage the complete IT stack in one place. Now, what happened is the reason why we're covering this now is because it has recently been there's recently been a deposition. I need the right words. It has recently been. I've lost my bloody window here. Where's it gone? So it's recently been brought to the attention of. There we go. 1 second. Here we go. So it was there has been a committee, and they brought the SolarWinds CEO in front of the House Oversight and Homeland Securities Committee, and the CEO blamed an intern, which I think is pretty damn terrible, really, for just lumping that on an intern. However, it is a general leak, which I every time I'm managing a team, I do always warn the teams against this. Putting passwords on GitHub. If you put a password on GitHub, it's going to be really difficult to to get over that, because GitHub is forever, really, much like much in the same way as the blockchain is. Seemingly, this was a leak that was done in, I think it's 2017. So it'd been there for 2.5 years before it was exploited.
Jesus.
But the intern who had been there for 3 months had set the password for, I think it's an FTP server, as SolarWinds 123, and managed to put that on GitHub. So clearly quite an obvious security flaw that is sat there waiting to happen. The problem is SolarWinds is designed as a company to prevent you from having security flaws. So I think it's there's definitely a lot of there's a lot to answer for. Well, it's definitely irony, but there's a lot for SolarWinds to answer for. An awful lot.
That's a culture thing as well.
How do you? It is, yeah. And I think it's a really big problem that they would lump that on an intern, especially in front of a House committee.
Exactly, that's terrible. Yeah, because well, I mean, goes without saying, really. If it's not the intern's fault at all, it shouldn't be. It should not be possible for an intern to make those mistakes. It's something so simple as well. It's it's pretty disappointing of them.
Yeah, and a password 123. I mean, I think everybody's done that. So everybody who has done that, that is not a secure password. But again, you've got to have a better way of being able to manage security and be able to manage passwords and authentication, and you need to be looking at encryption of all of this data. You need to be thinking about how this data is transmitted. Things need to not be checked into GitHub. This is what env files are for. You can pass passwords, you can pass data encrypted. There are very simple ways and methods for doing that. There's not really an excuse for this. But if that's what they're teaching their interns, then they need to do a better job of teaching their interns. I think it shows a flaw in SolarWinds management, and ultimately a flaw in the CEO, not because he is not controlling how that is administered within the company. This is really important stuff, and they've managed to create a breach in across all of these governmental departments. So I think they need to do a better job of training their people.
I mean, that's why I said culture, because obviously it's not the CEO's responsibility to make sure this sort of stuff doesn't happen, but he needs to encourage a culture where people are, taking their job very seriously. They're taking security very seriously. That's why I said the culture thing was a big deal here, because it's not his fault.
Oh no, I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely spot on. And the most important thing is you don't throw someone under the bus like
No,
that as
not
well.
at all.
I mean,
What a
that's
weak,
that's such a negative.
cowardly man. I'm
Yeah, I know.
assuming it was a man because there's a picture of a man here.
Yeah, and
But
that's
yeah, Sudaka
yeah, I believe so.
Ramakrishna.
But I mean, yeah, but I think this is yeah, I mean that's part of the culture, isn't it? You know, you're going to create such a negative culture, and you don't want to have a culture of fear as well. If someone makes a mistake, then they get thrown under the bus in front of a house committee. I mean that for the fact that that had been there as a vulnerability in the platform for 2.5 years, that is you know, that's plenty of time to fix a mistake like that. Plenty of time. So yeah, I mean that's again another developing story, I guess, as more light from SolarWinds and that investigation into that massive security breach in the US. So hopefully we'll get to see a bit more about where these where the where these sort of systemic failures happened within SolarWinds and other companies that enabled this breach. Over the coming weeks. Anyway, let's move on. So, PlayStation 5. You're a bit of a fan of PlayStations, aren't you, Sam?
I quite like PlayStation. Better than Xbox.
You didn't seem very enthusiastic about that.
I wonder where you're going with it.
I have a PlayStation 4, but it does my head in.
No, yeah, I've got PlayStation 4. That's fine. I don't have the Pro one though, unfortunately. But yeah, PlayStation over Xbox.
I mean,
PlayStation.
PlayStation. Yeah, I don't actually have time for playing that. We only ever use it for watching Now TV. Just because I can't get Now TV to run on anything else that I've got. So that's more of a Now TV problem. Fix your stuff, Now TV. So PlayStation 5, there's been a bit of an issue with PlayStation 5. We've talked about this before. Most of it is coming down to silicon and the lack of it, mostly because of mining. People are mining using crypto, and there seems to be a lack of silicon to be able to power certain things like games consoles like the PlayStation 5. But the PlayStation 5 is being restocked. So there is a man on Twitter. His name is Matt Swinder or Swider, and he is at Matt Swider on Twitter, and he is tracking the PS5 restock. He is the managing editor of Tech Radar, and he is letting you know as and when you're going to be able to get hold of your PS5 as they slowly but surely get restocked.
He's passionate, isn't he? He's passionate about the PS5.
Yeah, so he really likes it. And he is also doing drop-ins on tech journalism on Clubhouse as well. So you can join Matt Swider, and this has turned into an advert for Matt. But yes, he is tracking where you will be able to get your PS5. So for those who are listening, and I know there are some avid games console fans out there who are looking for their PS5s. So if you want to get hold of them, he might be your man to check out because Tech Radar are tracking that restock.
Like a hawk.
Like hawks, yes. So, yes. And then what else have we got to talk about? Oh, yes, we've got one final headline, which is the 700 terabyte optical disc, which I initially read this and was like, well, that seems a little strange.
Excessive.
It does seem a little excessive. And also, you know, it makes you wonder what necessarily is the point of a 700 terabyte optical disc. But there is more to it. So if you think about it, 700 terabytes is a hell of a lot of space. It's a huge amount. And you think about what might be, why that might be useful. If you imagine a DVD has about 25 gigabytes of space. So we're talking like being able to get up to 35,000 times the amount of space that you can get on a DVD. That's colossal. And actually, why is this going to be useful? Well, it's going to be particularly good for home users, but where it's really going to be advantageous is data centers. So I don't know if you know this, but most data centers are still running on hard drives. They're running on um, magnetic disks. They're not running on solid state disks, and that is generally because solid state is obviously particularly useful and is pretty much in everybody's laptops and PCs that are new, and obviously it's in all of your phones and all that sort of stuff. But it's not really data center ready, and you can get larger magnetic disks in data centers, and also the life cycle of a data center disk is about 10 years. So there are many reasons why hard disk drives are still used in data centers, but these optical disks are much larger than what is potentially available in a hard disk drive, and is available in a solid state drive. And so it might have some particularly good applications. Although at this point, I think it's still just a development. So it's a. Do you want to tell us a bit more about it, Sam?
Well, I mean, I've little tidbits of other information, because not from this article, but just in general, but because I think hard drives actually use helium or some gas, anything above, I think, 256 terabytes or something like that. They have to start using gas to read and write to the disk. So I would wonder what technology is going to be used for how they're able to get such a good amount of data on essentially a CD, right? Optical discs. So it's pretty incredible technology. The academics at the University of Shanghai have developed this, and their research is part of ongoing efforts to find efficient means of storing data. Because that's the other thing about SSDs; they have a read-write capacity. Like, you can only an SSD will have like a value of, it can read and write 72 terabytes or something like that. They can normally go for a lot longer, but I know why I'm thinking about this is because there was a Twitter user that found on the new M1 Max, they found that people are getting up to 10% hard drive usage after a month of using these new M1 Max, which is really bad. And it's because of swap disking or swap filing. Basically, when a computer runs out of memory, it starts to use the hard drive to store that data. And because SSDs wear away as you read and write data, that's where they're seeing the deterioration in hard drive kind of thing. And that's how I found out about all this. So that's another little bit of news there, quick bit of news. But I'm guessing CDs they must last for a lot longer, in terms of they're not based on read write. Maybe they're just based on time or something like that. But that's
I mean, seemingly this will change the balance of how they're actually doing this, but it seems that they're using they're using a nano composite material, combining graphene and oxide flakes.
Wow.
With up-converted nanoparticles to achieve an unprecedented data density. So they're finding a way of, I think, making everything smaller so they can increase the density. But I think, when you compare that to what is available in solid state or hard disk drives, it is huge, actually, a 700 terabyte disk. And actually, I misquoted, I think, slightly earlier. It's 28,000 times of a Blu-ray in terms of size. So 28,000 times larger.
Didn't I read something like that could store all of Netflix or something?
Yes, they've worked out it could store all of Netflix on a single disc. So maybe Netflix in future could move away from hosting on AWS and host it on a CD.
I've yet to find that resource or article where I said they do in fact have their own CD thing. It might be like a backup thing or something, but I did and have heard somewhere they still use DVDs in some capacity. Who knows?
Well, as someone who's been heavily involved in the video distribution, I over the internet, I am skeptical of this news that you're bringing me, Sam. So I would love to see it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you're suggesting that it can't be used for active playing because everything is changed into adaptive bitrate or variable bitrate.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So there must be something behind it that is, maybe they are, maybe it's converting from DVDs. I don't know, and being able to turn that into an adaptive bitrate. But yeah, adaptive bitrate technology is essentially what's enabling you to get your video stream delivered to you. And obviously, there's organizations like DAZN or MyCuju as well. We've got MyCuju coming up on this week, actually, with Patrick Pladger. And we will have Ben Lavender from DAZN in a future episode talking to us about video streaming and how adaptive bitrate works. I think we touch on a couple of occasions, but adaptive bitrate just allows you to have several different encodes from a few kilobits all the way up to 4K actually, and depending on your internet speed, you will get a different stream by each chunk of data actually, so that you will be able to get a nice smooth playback. Did we cover last week the 5K audio stream? I'm not sure if we did.
Don't think so.
Yeah, there was a new thing. I think it's Google. I think it's Google Lyra. Is it Google Lyra?
I'm not sure.
Let me just Google this quickly. Googling Google products at the moment. Yeah, okay. So this is a new super low bitrate codec, which I meant to cover last week. I missed. But it's a super low, because this is the good thing. You see, we're trying to be ahead of the news. There are other tech shows out there that are covering our news the week after.
There you go.
To be clear, because I listened to them all, and we're ahead of the curve. So Google Lyra, which I haven't heard anybody else cover yet, but it's a super low bit rate. So essentially, you can take a stream that is able to operate at 3 kilobits per second, which is extremely low. So it outperforms any other codec. And so Opus is the other standard codec that streams at extremely low bitrate, which is 8 kilobits per second. So I mean, and if you can do 3 kilobits instead of 8 kilobits, that's a 60% reduction in bandwidth, which is phenomenal. So being able to deliver high quality audio that actually sounds good. You can get really good video chat. So this is going to work. This could work well for people using Clubhouse, for example. You can get a really great stream on a 56K modem, which is colossally impressive. So there you go. We've talked, I think, throughout this particular show about a whole load of things on improving performance and improving size. And so, you've got Facebook working on delivering smaller applications. You've got bigger data center storage potentially with these new optical discs. And at the same time, you're able to deliver audio codec at a much lower bit rate which still sounds good. So plenty of developments in terms of speed and capacity, I think, going on the internet. We
have a headline for the episode.
Absolutely. Which brings us back to the census. Is that optimized? Is the census optimized? I'm dying to know whether it is. So I think more research is going to go into that on my part this week to figure out whether it is actually going to stay up or not, because that was my immediate thought when it dropped through the door this week, is are they going to be able to handle it? There's a lot of questions on this year's census as well.
I've not seen it. It's not through my posts yet. I've not seen it. I don't know whether the government knows where I'm living, but yeah.
Well, it's a mandatory thing. Everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
Sealed for 100 years. Don't know if anyone's using has used the old census data, but I've liked to go into some of the old census data from 1911 is
Jesus.
obviously available now, 1901, and many years besides that. Those census data is available on ancestry.com and various other sites like that.
That's cool.
Well, it's great for if you want to go and look up your ancestors.
Yeah.
You know, I've done that in terms of looking at family trees. I think it's fascinating. And so, you know, you have to think about what you're putting down on the census, because that's what your
Legacy.
what's the opposite of ancestors? That's
Par-
what
children.
that's what your
grandchildren.
that's what your children, your grandchildren are going to be looking at.
Legacy, right? It's your legacy.
Yeah, it is your legacy. Yeah.
Or Chris just snooping at your records from 1911.
Well, yeah. I mean, I actually wanted to see who it was that lived in my house, because in Walthamstow, this is a little known Walthamstow fact. You as you go around Walthamstow in East London, there are fake blue plaques everywhere. So obviously, blue plaques are there um, to to denote someone of fame around London. You see them in various places on Charles Dickens's house and whatnot. And in Walthamstow, there are plenty of blue plaques that are out there for the people who lived in the house at the time of the 1901 or 1911 census, which is around the time that most of Walthamstow was built. And so you will walk past a place that will have someone's name on a blue plaque in a window, and it'll say maker of forks, or maker of there is one that's maker of plastic forks. You know, there are school teachers and stuff like that, and there's a surprisingly large number of houses that have that have all of these blue plaques. So I know that when my house was built, which was somewhere around 1900, that in 1901, the 1901 census, it was a house of women. So 3 generations of women lived in this house, and that was it.
There you go.
There you go. We're off the topic of tech news now, but there you go. So the census is actually going to be completed on Sunday, the 21st of March. So yeah, you can get an access code now. You can start to fill it in, but I'm not sure if you can submit until the actual day.
Well, I was going to suggest getting it in early, but yeah, if you have to storm it on the same day, yeah, that's a little concerning.
When to complete your census. This is on census.gov.uk. Every household should complete the census on Sunday, the 21st of March, or as soon as possible after. If you've responded before the 21st of March and things have changed, you can let us know by calling us for free. So there you go. You can follow up by calling rather than amending your form. I mean, this is just an online form, right? And it should take 10 minutes, it says. They are encouraging people to fill in the form on the 21st of March. But as it says here, you can respond before, you can respond a little after. So you would imagine that the majority of households are going to fill that in on one day.
If it's still running.
If it's still running. How many households in the UK? So as of 2019, there were 19.2 million families in the UK. The number of households grew by 0.9% from the previous year to 27.8 million. So 27.8 million households are going to be submitting to the census. That is a hell of a lot of day, a hell of a lot of traffic, a hell of a lot of day, hell of a lot of traffic to take in one day. So I'm very excited about this.
For all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Oh, it's exciting. I mean, if I were building this, you know, as someone who has been on the inside of Amazon and has delivered, you know, a huge amount of content to a huge number of customers, I would be bricking it at this point. If I were the government, yeah.
Let's wrap it up there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this new session. You can, I was going to say you could still listen to this on YouTube, but this is at the end of the show. So thank you for listening if you've got this far. There will be a cut down version of this, which will make it into the podcast this week, which has Patrick Pladger on it from Mykuju, which is a great talk. He is the engineering director, and they are doing some really cool stuff with streaming live sports.
And chat about startup if you're interested in how to
Yes, some
start.
good startup chat in there, and I've actually had a recent conversation, a more recent conversation with Patrick. They're now actually going into a merger as well, so they're bringing on another organisation on board as well, which will make which will help them to expand. So it's a growing startup, and they've done some great stuff. They've grown very, very fast, and they're based in Amsterdam.
That's great.
All right, thank you everyone.